Hello, Will. We're here to talk about the timeline tools, but before that, I really want you to introduce yourself and tell all of the people here what you've been doing with the timeline teams.
All right. Well, hi. I'm Will Harris. I'm the Senior Product Manager for the Timeline Tools here at Foundry in the Nuke family, and I'm really glad to be here. And yes, we've got a bunch of cool stuff in Nuke 16.
This release, I think, is a great culmination of the time that you have been here. Is it 2 years now that you've been?
2 years and a week, I think, yeah.
Yeah. I think it really brings up a lot of your knowledge and experience that you have had in the industry with timelines and that side of the work.
Yeah.
So tell me, what was the problem? What were the things that people was asking you for?
All right. Well, I think what I heard talking to various customers was that if you look at the sort of review process in both the VFX and the CG animation work, that there's the need for basically a generational upgrade in workflows.
So what has been happening? Why do we need to make that change?
Time is being sucked up by preparing and sort of categorizing, and the feedback loops have been a bit long, and people are spending a lot of time getting reviews ready, and then of course just that whole sort of process, remote collaboration is challenging, so review is taking more time than it should.
It's interesting, right? We have had an increase of shows or an increase of amount of VFX work or cleanup work. It's not just the big explosions and the fancy things, but there's a lot of work that has come with the TV shows and films and everything. So those reviews are getting longer and longer through the process.
Probably, yeah.
So how can we help? What have we done, or how can we do with Nuke 16 something different?
Well, we've got several features, but one I want to start with is what I think of as a review superpower, and that is a new contact sheet for the timeline environment.
So that is pretty cool. So we have had the contact sheet in the node graph,
right,
where you could actually connect and see different parts of your shots. How is this different?
Okay, well, instead of just working within one shot, we're talking about the stage when lots of renders, comps are coming in, and maybe a supervisor or a sequence lead needs to see everything together and then do compare and analyze work. So comparing the differences, the similarities, finding problems in what could be a lot of shots. So 10, 20, 50 shots potentially all at once. So what the contact sheet brings is that grid view, but to be able to then play back synchronously multiple shots up to dozens of shots based on the performance of hardware.
One of the interesting things when we're working on shows is how you group those shots together, how you find that the sequence actually work.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is that ability to look at those sequences in context.
That's right. And context is king, right? So we're looking through a timeline is one thing, but to be able to then actually lay them out in a grid the way you want them is also important. So whether you want to pick manually, like shots 3, 5, 7, 9, different ones, they then form a grid, which you can then scrub, and they all start from frame 1 and play through. That's one way to use contact sheet in a timeline environment. But a more advanced way is actually to use our tagging system. So there could be production-based tags where you want to filter by a combination of tags to see a sort of a complex sort of exactly the shots that you want that are needing your approval today.
So then this is quite nice, because then it means that you're not just working with the timeline that exists, but you're actually connected to your shot manager and being able to actually drive your reviews and have automatic contact sheets based on that.
That's right. Yeah, if you're connected and tags are coming in from production tracking, those tags are totally available to you in a pull-down list to sort from and filter.
That's pretty cool. Shall we have a look at it? Because I think people like seeing it.
Let's do it.
Right. Let's jump into our demo.
Hello and welcome. So in this section, we'll be looking at contact sheets. Now, this is a much requested feature that we're very pleased to deliver in version 16 of Nuke Studio and Hiero. There is also a workflow with this tool, even in HieroPlayer, but this has a few restrictions to functionality. So primarily this has been designed for doing reviews and compare sessions, but we dare say that you're going to find lots of interesting ways that you can use this and introduce it into your day-to-day workflow. So with our little sort of demo sequence loaded up here, of dinosaurs, we do love dinosaurs, you're going to notice that there's a couple of new buttons in the edit toolbar. We've got our send to contact sheet button, and we've got a new contact sheet pick mode. So the easiest way to start this off to create a contact sheet is with your sequence loaded. We're just going to click the send to contact sheet button. And what this is going to do is it's going to create a brand new viewer or contact sheet named after the sequence that we've got currently loaded up. Now we can populate this in a couple of ways. We can pick shots that we'd like to see inside the contact sheet, and we can also use tagging to populate that as well. So we're just going to have a quick look at both. We're going to start off with our pick mode. So in pick mode, when this is active, this means whatever I click on inside the sequence is then going to start to populate the contact sheet. All the usual stuff applies like you would normally do with hard selections. If I click down an empty area, it will clear the selection. And you'll also notice that when we do this sort of control or command click, that the contact sheet starts to get populated with the clips in the order in which you select them, which is kind of super useful. And you can kind of use that as well to maybe apply that to sort of viewing tracks or particular versions if you're akin to building your review sessions in a vertical manner. You can, of course, use all the usual sort of things like marquee selections, as well as shift to select between a range on particular tracks and things like that. So I'm just going to do control. I'm just going to select all of my clips inside of here. And I'm kind of happy with my selection. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to come out of the pick mode. So everything that's highlighted in green at the moment is populating my contact sheet. And when I come out of pick mode here, you can see that we still have a visual queuing of highlighting just to let you know what shots are actually being used within your sequence. Also, at the top of the contact sheet, we've got a new menu bar specific to this particular contact sheet viewer. And we're going to look at some of the functionality of that. But probably the first thing to do will be to drag this contact sheet viewer to a new pane or a viewport, or indeed a monitor if you've got a separate monitor, dual monitor setup. And we're just going to home that view. So what's quite nice about this, obviously, is that we can have a sequence in our normal timeline viewer. And these two sort of players now act independently. We can still navigate through our sequence here, but our contact sheet play bar is independent. So what we're seeing here is all the shots that we are using to populate the contact sheet from the sequence are actually all synced up from frame one, and they will all play synchronized to the duration of the longest clip that we currently have selected. And you're going to notice that all the shorter clips that finish before this will then sort of freeze on the last frame. So the duration of the contact sheet time bar is not related to the duration of the sequence. It's actually dynamic depending on the length of the clips that you have loaded in the contact sheet. We could also use the contact sheet to find shots in the sequence. So if you've got a particular shot that you'd like to know, this one here, the dinosaur, and you'd like to know where that exists in the sequence, we can hold down the control or command key, we can left click that, and you can see that it's highlighting where that particular clip lives inside the sequence. So it's kind of good for navigation. The other thing as well, as far as navigation goes, is that this viewport behaves exactly the same as a normal timeline one. So you can use all the normal sort of navigation tools to kind of zoom in and look at things. Now, if you do go really close, you're going to see that this kind of pixelates up a little bit. And there's a couple of tools that are not actually present in the contact sheet view, one of them being the quality. And we actually deal with this a slightly different way for contact sheet to optimize performance, in as much as we set a resolution for the contact sheet. Now you can change this dynamically if you want to, and we do that by using one of the tools in our menu bar. So up here we've got a contact sheet settings, and we have an output resolution that we can use some standard stuff, so pretty much like you would find in the project settings. We can also do custom resolutions, which we'll look at in a second. But by default, we set this at 1920 1080 HD, and probably for most of the things this will be kind of good enough for quick reviews. But we are aware that if you want to have a slightly better quality, then we can actually up the resolution of the contact sheet, and by default what that will do is make the quality of those clips better as you zoom in. So if we go from our default HD up to our sort of UHD 4K, and if we just go and find that clip again, and we can kind of zoom in, you can now see that with an output resolution of 4K UHD, the quality greatly improves when you're zooming into particular areas. So another setting that exists in that settings cog there is the ability to set or customize how many shots you want to display in the contact sheet. And this is really useful in a couple of ways. If you've got lots of shots you want to look at, it allows you to sort of triage a little bit the amount of shots that you see in one go. So by adjusting our row and column count, we can actually change how many shots are displayed inside our contact sheet. So by default, we have a 5x5 grid, so effectively 25 shots per contact sheet. You can up or down that. I've just down that to 3 columns and 3 rows. And you can see now that what we're seeing is 9 shots instead of the original 18 that we've got in this particular sequence. But also you notice that we've now got in our pages menu, it's telling us that we're actually on page 1 of 2. We've still got 18 shots selected, which we'd like to look at. But because we've adjusted the row and column counts, we've now spread these over 2 pages. So if I come up here and I go into page 2, I can now see the rest of my shots for this. And if you had more shots selected or more shots that you're displaying in a particular resolution or grid, then there will be more pages as you go through. It's just a nice way to be able to break down huge amounts of clips that you want to review into more manageable pages. And again, each of these pages we can go through and we can play back to see how they look effectively. And the same rules apply. The longer shot is going to define the playback duration for these as well. So really useful, and something to really sort of keep in mind is that you've got this functionality to be able to customize how many shots you want to see, as well as your output resolution, which can also define the quality when you start zooming into some of these shots. So those two things together in combination, the ability to set your rows and columns as well as your resolution for your contact sheet, actually gives you a lot of control to be able to customize the look and how you use a contact sheet. So in this sequence here, I've got a stack of 3 tracks that have different versions of the same shot. So I've got my red grade at the bottom, I've got a green grade in the middle, and I've got a blue grade right at the top. Now, say I wanted to actually look at these in the contact sheet, but I'd like to look at them in a particular way. I can actually now customize that to make the viewing environment more conducive to looking at those in context. So what I've done here is I've got a custom output resolution of 5760 by 1620 and a maximum row count of 3, which represents the tracks, and the maximum column count of 6, which represents the amount of clips I want to display. So now sending this to my contact sheet and selecting the clips, some interesting things happen. If I just marquee select over all of these 6 shots here, I get this representation of each shot's version next to each other. So I have all of my shot 1s, my red, green and blue, all of my shot 2s, red, green and blue, and so on and so forth. But if I just change the selection method in a slightly different way, so I'm going to go and select this bottom track first, then this track, then this track. And now you can see that I can look at each track version above and below each other. So again, just a different way of using rows and columns and output resolutions, and the way that you select things can greatly influence the way that this is presented. And again, this is going to be like a really useful way to do your review sessions and compare sessions if you're in the habit of doing versions vertically in a track. Now, the other way I can populate my contact sheet is to use tags. So in this example, I've got 6 shots here that I've selected in the manual pick mode, which are populating my contact sheet. So I'm just going to come out of my pick mode selection. But you can also see that I've got a whole bunch of shots that have various tags as well. Now, what's nice about this is that those 2 modes can exist together. So I can look at my manual pick selection, or I can actually look at what I'm filtering via tags. And to do that, we just go up to our contact sheet menu bar at the top here, and you can see that I've got a tag button. So if I just click this, this is going to toggle me into tags view. And at the moment, I don't have any tags selected to populate this view. But if I look at the drop down next to this, you can see that I can visualize all my tags that exist on this particular sequence, and I can use some Boolean operations to display what I want to see. So say for argument's sake, I want to see everything that has a yellow tag. I can click on my yellow plus. And then you can see that I've got these 4 shots that have yellow tags as well. Now, 2 of these yellow tag shots also have a final tag on as well. So if I just wanted to filter out those, I could then click on the final tag as well. And now it's just going to show me the 2 shots that meet that criteria, the yellow and the final. So you can also use a minus boolean to this as well. So if we just deselect these for a second. And now if I want to see all of my red shots, you can see that I've got 4 red shots here. 2 of them have a pink tag as well. So say, well, actually, I don't want to see the red shots with a pink tag. I can come up here and hit minus, and now it's just going to show me my 2 shots that solely have a red tag applied to them without the pink. So again, quite a few combinations that you can have between these two things. We're just going to go back to see all of my red shots, and we'll just close that drop down. But like I said before, what's good about this is that you can have the two states coexisting. So now I've got some things that are filtered by the usage of tag filters, but I can easily disable that, and I can come back and see everything that I've got selected as a manual pick. So bringing this all together now, I'm doing this little review session of a bunch of shots, and I can see one that is clearly not matching. So I like to go through and correct that. So I can actually find this quickly by control left clicking. I can find that in my sequence, and I can bring up the grade controls for that particular shot, so I can sort of start to dial it back in. But I've also got this track-based soft effects, this overall grade that's going across everything. And maybe I would like to try and correct this shot without that being an effect. And of course, I could disable this in a sequence, but within the contact sheet menu bar, I've got this ability to quickly bypass, just for the contact sheet, any track-based soft effects. So now what I can do is I can come back here and I can sort of dial the correction back in a little bit until I think it's about right. And then I can go back and I can re-enable my track-based soft effects. Now, what this does is it doesn't actually affect the main timeline view. So if we just go to our same shot in the timeline viewer here, you can see that if I just bypass for the contact sheet, it actually doesn't have any effect on the main timeline view or output from that viewport. It's just literally for the contact sheet view. So that rounds up our overview of Contact Sheet. We hope that you can see the benefits that this feature brings and find it both useful and enjoyable to use in your day-to-day work.
So that was great. Thank you, Stu. That was a great demo of how to use Contact Sheet. But obviously, that's not the only part of reviews. Creating dailies is always also part of the process. What have we done in that area?
Well, we really listened to feedback, and we heard that it was taking too long to export to sort of popular file formats, QuickTime Movies, ProRes, H.264, even Avid, DNxHR media, to be able to get to producers to review, to be able to get back to studio side editorial, or even to, for the producer on the beach to look at the dailies as they sometimes need to. That
We were
control.
talking about a producer in the beach yesterday. So
But what we did is we created a GPU accelerated export right from the timeline viewer, and that gives us a way faster way of delivering to those formats right from your timeline, and it's we think about 12 times faster in a lot of cases than the traditional export, and sometimes it's even faster than that. So people should sort of expect a real-time or close to real-time way to send off your viewing copy.
let's be honest, right? We're quite slow at this.
Okay.
So I'm really happy that we actually got there. The team has done amazing work, and as you say, 12 times faster. And we really hope that this will change how you actually do your dailies and how you actually do your exports. There is one more thing in this whole process of review that I think is one of the most important bits, and is being able to actually pass creative intent. During the reviews, there is obviously the ones that you just pick notes in the back, but a lot of reviews are about the individual artists or the supervisors with the artists. What have we done? What can they do now?
Well, we know that sometimes supervisors, as previous compositors themselves, have a lot of knowledge and techniques to finish shots. Maybe take that shot from 95% finished to that hallowed, final, done, approved, 100% done. And that is something where traditionally in most timelines you don't have that power. But because this is the Nuke timeline, we have multi-channel access. So if you have a EXR with embedded channels, we can now read those channels and do stuff with those AOVs, those render passes, in our soft effects in the timeline.
So you're bringing kind of the multi-channel workflow that we have been using in Nuke for all the heavy CG compositing stuff, but you're bringing then that to the timeline and get access to that and being able to actually grade, blur, all the things, plus blink and
That's right.
inference.
Yeah, so it's not just color grading. You might be actually doing a depth of field effect that you want to process in Blink and audition in the timeline. You may also want to do inference, take one of the copycat trained models and apply it right there in the timeline, whether it's a roto preview or some kind of cool stylization effect. You could do that and copy and paste within the timeline, or even copy and paste to the node graph.
So we have Ale and the team showed a little bit of this.
Yes.
Right, let's jump into it.
So I'm here with Ale, product manager for the timeline tools. Ale, tell us a bit about yourself.
Hi, Will. I'm Ale. I'm product manager for Nuke Timeline Tools, as you just said. I've been working in Foundry for about a year now, and I'm very excited about all these features that we're featuring in 16. So a little bit of intro about myself. I've been in post-production for about 20 years now, and I've been doing a little bit of everything around post-production. So I have a very generalistic knowledge of all the pipelines and everything regarding post.
Excellent. And you've worked on several projects this year, but specifically, we wanted to talk about the multi-channel soft effects. Tell us, what is multi-channel soft effects?
For this release, one thing that we wanted to do is to bring the power of multi-channel EXRs into the timeline. So you were already able to see to view all the multiple layers in an EXR clip using the viewer, but you weren't really able to do anything with it, just view it. So all the soft effects that we have in the timeline are now multi-channel aware, which means that you can interact with those channels and make modifications so that you can give better feedback to your VFX artists.
Wow, that sounds unique in a timeline environment. I know that the big idea here is about conveying creative intent. So what's the issue? What actually needs to be communicated here?
So let me give you an example. So the VFX supervisor will give creative feedback to their artists, and for example, to finish that shot, the only thing that is missing is having the speculars a little bit more bright or the shadows a little bit more darker. So this enables the VFX supervisor with a whole new set of tools that can give that exact feedback to be clearer in communication and to remove all the noise between the review session and what the artist can actually do.
And how do they actually get it back to the individual compositor?
Well, it's quite easy because, as usual, all our soft effects are compatible with the node graph. So it's just copying and pasting, and it's done.
But thanks so much, Ale.
Thank you, Will.
And you actually made a video with a bit more detail on this feature. So let's see it now.
New in Nuke Studio and Hero version 16, we have enabled the multi-channel power of your EXRs in soft effects and the timeline. We are giving you the power to make real-time tweaks on top of the comp render using AOVs or render lighting passes, or whatever layers are available in your multi-EXRs, to visualize creative changes quickly before sending them to your compositing team to integrate. Let's take a closer look at the multiple options that multi-channel soft effects gives you as a supervisor or sequence lead, reviewing comp artists' work. The first thing you will notice is that when you hard select the timeline items, you will see color chips at the bottom of the clips. The soft effects have a similar look, with color chips at the bottom that indicate whether the channels are being used or bypassed. We also added more detailed information between parentheses next to the soft effects name. The first part indicates the channel it's affecting, and the second shows which channel is being used as a mask. So you might affect RGB using a specular lighting pass as the mask. Additionally, we have added this M on the left, which is visible when masking. Many soft effects can now utilize your AOVs. Let's see the Grade Soft Effect Properties panel as an example. We have enabled the channel dropdown, which recalls all the layers in your EXR sequence. On the bottom area, we have added the mask and unpremult-by knobs to complete the same layout you are used to from the node graph. You could do an adjustment of the reflection pass while masking through an isolation mat, either AOV or the alpha channel. That adjusted reflection pass could then be used as the mask input for an adjustment to the beauty or RGB result. As part of this creative package, we have also added new soft effects. As part of our grading toolset, you will find Hue Correct. This will become very handy when you are making fine adjustments to skin tones, trees, and skies, for example. In addition to this, you will see that we have added a few more filters. Filter Erode will help you control your masks with more detail. For example, a soft-edged mat could be eroded or expanded or extruded if used with negative values. And Blur will expand your timeline capabilities to use, for example, in combination with your depth pass. And for those who are wondering what else is new, have you heard of Inference and Blink script nodes? They have been available in the timeline since Hero version 15. And now we have unlocked a whole new dimension by making them multi-channel aware. After doing all your machine learning training in Nuke using Copycat, the Inference soft effect will allow you to use your CAT files to quickly run them over several shots. This will give you a whole new level of reviewing muscle. Auditioning your multi-channel training results over several shots with only a few clicks is now possible. Remember that like any other non-linear editor, you can copy and paste your soft effects across multiple shots. After the training has been completed in the node graph, the inference can be applied over several shots, and if you're using it to create additional channels, you can then use those channels downstream in your grading effects. As for Blink script, the soft effect is now multi-channel aware too. This means you can do very cool stuff without leaving the timeline. You can check our online guide with some examples of kernels that you can adapt to your artistic needs. Please note that these are offered as guidance only and are not fully supported by the Foundry team. With this new multi-channel feature, shuffle and merge examples will come in very handy. Shuffle your layers around or use a merge kernel to output your desired image. You can fine-tune your individual CG elements to create realism, or you can go a different way altogether and create non-photoreal effects using our Blink script tools. This is incredibly useful for checking your kernels and training before distributing them to your team. And it is also very useful when you are running review sessions. Giving feedback to your artists is now more practical, as you can show what is needed instead of just saying it. Images are worth 1,000 words, so why not make one to communicate and demonstrate your ideas to your team of compers? To run a review session, you can combine the multi-channel soft effects with the annotation system, all while in a sync review with multiple collaborators. Another great benefit of this feature is that it offers direct interoperability with Nuke. Communicate your creative choices very easily by pasting the soft effects on the node graph. Timeline soft effects are 100% translatable to nodes in Nuke. Having the soft effects enabled in a timeline level reduces the need for unnecessary renders, as minor changes can be handled in Hero instead of requiring a new full render from CG or comp. And by reducing rendering overhead, you will be saving artists' time and computational resources. We hope this will give you more time to do the art and less time doing the admin. Enjoy!